The prophecies have aligned, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to a fun little presentation here as I go through and simulate, not in this episode alone, this is just the selection show, but I'm going to go through and do a full 64 team March Madness style college football bracket. Now, I've personally seeded all of these teams. It is based off of 2023. I will be using, or I believe the simulator will be using the 2023 rosters. So think back to 2023. All of the best teams. Obviously, we've had a lot of things happen in this offseason, but you can see these little, black squares over the teams that I already have. I did create these seeds personally. And I am, like a college football expert, so I know how to seed teams like this. I will say the one thing I have to apologize to Penn State fans because, quite frankly, I just forgot to put Penn State in this tournament. I was kind of like crossing out the teams that I had already written down. I flipped to the next page. Apparently, I forgot to cross out Penn State. And by the time I saw it, I was already on like the 13th seed, and I'm not going to rearrange the entire thing. Or I was already like filling it out, honestly. So I apologize to Penn State. Let's just imagine that Penn State got caught up in some type of scandal or something, or just listen, I'm not going to rearrange all the seeds just for Penn State. I will tell Penn State fans, I'll give you a little consolation game against Charlotte University if you want it. But this is the selection show. We're going to unveil everything right now. I wonder if you can... Oh, nice. You can zoom in. That's beautiful. So we can zoom in, and we're going to start in the first region right here in the... What is this, Northeast? I mean, just forget about this, like, Final Four 2020. This is just, I had to use this, like, True TV. But this is just the college football thing. I'm going to reveal everything, and then in the next episode, I'll start the simulation. So the number one overall seed in this entire bracket is Michigan University, of course. Michigan goes 15-0 out of the Big Ten. The Wolverines, by the way, there's no first four. So it's just 64 teams. I didn't do the first four just because it's too confusing. I would rather just have a clean bracket. Who will Michigan face, though? Jacksonville State. Wow. Jacksonville State takes on Michigan looking for a gigantic upset. Their first year in FCS. And what did they go, 9-5? Very impressive season from Jacksonville State. Michigan expecting an easy win. And by the way, all these games are neutral site. Just like college basketball, there's no home field advantage in any of these. Moving on to the 8v9 game, the number 8 seed, it is Memphis, the Tigers, out of the American. Very nice season, 10 wins. Who will they face, the 9 seed? It is UCLA, the Bruins, coached by Chip Kelly in this game. Chip Kelly will be coaching this game because it's based off of 2023. And it'll be Memphis taking on UCLA. Nice little 8-9 matchup there. Winner will very likely face Michigan. Moving on to the 5v12 game, it is Liberty, the Flames, Conference USA, undefeated regular season, 13-0, and they get a 5 seed. So that's impressive. They're going to have to, stave off of a 5v12 upset. Let's see who they end up facing. UCF. Yes, I did include a few teams with losing records, mainly the 12 seeds. And this format, by the way, it is very similar to college basketball, where all the 13 through 16 seeds are group of 5 teams. And then also you're going to have a few group of 5 teams inside the top 12, like Liberty, things like that. But I tried to keep a realistic format. It's not like you're going to see Florida as a 14 seed, right? So it's like the same type of format. But Liberty will take on UCF. UCF barely made it in. They were on the bubble. Yes, they could have, they were 6-7, but they have good analytics, let's be honest. And their starting quarterback was injured. Moving on to the 4 seed, it is LSU. And the Tigers from the SEC, Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner, the legendary season, elite receivers, really bad defense for LSU, but they're a dangerous 4 seed matched up in the same region as Michigan. They'll be taking on Boise State, the Broncos, out of the Mountain West Conference. What a turnaround season they had. They got up to 8 wins, and they will be a 13 seed. Possibly a high-scoring game against LSU. I would be optimistic if I was Boise State, but I think LSU is going to crush them, honestly. Moving on to the 6th seed, it is Kansas. Very nice season for Kansas, dealing with the quarterback injuries. They've turned their program around there. They will be facing off against, they had a little technical difficulty there, Tulane. The Green Wave, very impressive inside of the top 11 seeds. What a seed rank for them. A group of 5 team Tulane with Michael Pratt and all the offense. They're an 11 seed taking on Kansas, possibly a high-scoring game. Moving on to the number 3 seed in this region, it is Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish nearly beat Ohio State early in the season, finished the season strong, had a very strong bowl performance. They are a solid, actually I think they were towards the bottom in my 3 seeds. They might have been the worst 3 seed, but they're still a 3 seed, and they will be taking on San Jose State. The Spartans, who had a breakthrough season, they make the final tournament. Congratulations to them. Moving on to the 7 seed, it is Texas A&M. Extremely talented, kind of always seem to be around 500. Very hard team to rank because their analytics are solid despite their record, mainly because they're in the SEC West. Very tough conference in terms of, winning games. A&M ends up a 7 seed. They will be taking on Iowa State. So that's actually, I think Iowa State's going to win that game outright. Yeah, Iowa State I might have underseeded a little bit. They've got an explosive offense. Matt Campbell trying to resurrect his college football coaching career. Maybe he can do it by beating Texas A&M and then beating a 2 seed. The 2 seed is Oregon. The Ducks out of Eugene. And out of the Pac-12 conference, they will be the number 2 seed in Michigan's region, and they will be taking on the 15-seeded Fresno State. So a little West Coast matchup there. Fresno State started off the season really strong. They were trending towards being like a 10 or 11 seed, but they really fell off, and they make it as a 15 seed. So that is the first of the top of the 4 regions. We're going to move on down now. The next number 1 seed, it is Texas. Texas University with Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, a number 1 seed. Congratulations to them, and they will be taking on Texas State. An in-state battle, an in-state rivalry. Texas State, very solid season. I believe they won 9 games. They barely made it in as a 16 seed. Could we get the upset of the century? We will see. Let's take a look at the 8v9 game. It is Miami. The Hurricanes out of Florida, led by Mario Cristobal. They are an 8 seed, and that's a dangerous 8 seed Miami. Very explosive. They will be taking on NC State. Yeah, so this might have been the one I misseeded. NC State really should be like a 6 or a 7 seed, but I have them down at a 9 seed. NC State, they might be taking on Texas in the second round. That's a tough game for Texas, but the Wolfpack, they've received a lot of votes to be a preseason top 25 team in 2024. We'll see how they perform in this tournament. The number 5 seed, it is Clemson. The Tigers out of the ACC, very solid team, really impressive defense, one of the best, most underrated defenses in college football. The offense has been lacking the past few years, but they still are a solid 5 seed. They will be taking on Northwestern. So Northwestern, they lose Pat Fitzgerald, the whole scandal happens, and then they're able to self-correct, calm down, finish 8-5, and beat Utah in a bowl game. But I do think that's a really good draw for Clemson facing Northwestern. Northwestern barely making it into the tournament as a 12 seed. Moving on to the 4 seed, it is Tennessee. The Volunteers probably. I wonder if they'll be starting Nico Lamanleva for this game. You know what? I actually think they will. I think it is updated rosters in the simulator I'm going to be doing. They are a 4 seed, very respectable there, and they will be taking on South Alabama. Oh no, this South Alabama team, that's got upset written all over it. South Alabama, really impressive, crazy bowl win where they destroyed Eastern Michigan like 56-0. They're a 13 seed, and they're looking to possibly make a Sweet 16 run. Moving on to the number 6 seed, it is Oklahoma State. The Cowboys having a very strange season. They actually lost to South Alabama at home really early on in the season, but they turned their season around, and I gave them a 6 seed. I think that's respectable. You could argue their record was better than that, but the analytics absolutely hated them. Moving on to the 11 seed, it is Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech, their last game of the season, they did hang in against Georgia, and they quietly had a respectable season, so they make it in, and really, that's great for their program to make it in a tournament like this with how bad they've been recently. Moving on to the number 3 seed, it is Arizona, the Wildcats, having a crazy rise here with the young quarterback. Obviously, their head coach leaves, but in this simulation, I think they're going to have Jed Fish. Honestly, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, in terms of a simulation if they have their head coach or not, but Arizona gets to be a 3 seed. That's extremely impressive. The 14 seed, they will be taking on Toledo. So Toledo, the high-flying offense, the Rockets out of the MAC. We will see. That could be an upset game. We'll have to. Arizona, they're not used to this type of success. Arizona, they're not used to being a 3 seed. That'll be interesting. Moving on to the 7 seed, it is SMU, the Mustangs. Obviously dealt with the injury to their starting quarterback, Preston Stone, towards the end of the season. They still had a very good season, double-digit wins, and they are a 10 seed. They will be taking on Auburn. So Auburn makes the tournament as a 10 seed. You know, I debated not including Auburn, but I think they had a good enough year. Very competitive, should have beaten Alabama. They're going to get a crack at SMU. And if they win that game, possibly facing a 2 seed. The number 2 seed in this region, it is Ohio State. So Ohio State, kind of an uneven year there towards the end. The loss to Missouri, the loss to Michigan, but it was a close game against Michigan. And the Missouri game, they did not have McCord. In this game, they will have McCord. They will be taking on Wyoming. So what a weird matchup that is. Ohio State taking on Wyoming, who had a very nice 9-win season, and they get to be a 15 seed there. So that is the next region. We're going to move this over now. Can we move this over, please? There we go. Move it over, and now we're looking at the top right, the number 1 seed in this region. This will be the West region. It is Washington, so not surprising. Washington, they were 14-0, made the national title. They lost to Michigan, and they get to be a 1 seed in this bracket. I figured it was only right. They made the national title. The 16 seed, it's going to be New Mexico State. So they end up making the tournament barely. They won 9 games. What a crazy rise for them. They were one of the worst teams in college football, and they do get to make this tournament and take on Washington, maybe a crazy 16v1 upset. The 8 seed, it is Iowa. So Iowa had a good record. They have a terrible offense. We understand that they play in a terrible conference, but they do have an extremely elite defense. So maybe their defense can carry them against West Virginia. There's an interesting matchup. West Virginia having a decent season, and we will see what happens in that game. Moving on to the 5v12 matchup, the number 5 seed, it is USC. So USC with Caleb Williams, certainly they have the ability to make a deep run in this, but there's a reason they're a 5 seed. They've got a terrible defense. We will see. They will be taking on an upset-minded TCU. So TCU was the final team that I allowed into the tournament, you know, from the top 12, because 13 through 16 are a group of 5 teams. And TCU, even though they went 5-7, they had extremely good analytics, and also, I mean, I can respect TCU. They did make the national title last year. I know they got crushed, but I kind of have a soft spot for TCU because I did badmouth them last year, and then everyone started badmouthing them, and then I just decided to let TCU in. So they'll be facing USC. Moving on to the number 4 seed, it is Oklahoma. Brett Venables, the Sooners. I believe they're going to be without Dylan Gabriel, probably starting Jackson Arnold. I'm not sure in terms of the simulator. They will be taking on UTSA, so close proximity there. Oklahoma versus Texas San Antonio. UTSA, very solid team. Veteran quarterback. Could be an interesting game there. I would expect Oklahoma, though, to prevail in that game. Moving on to the number 6 seed, it is Oregon State. So Oregon State, kind of a breakthrough year here with DJ Uiagalelei. Obviously, the situation with their head coach leaving, both of their quarterbacks leaving is tough, but this could be their last chance to do something of relevancy. We will see. They will be taking on Virginia Tech. Yeah, Virginia Tech's a dark horse in this tournament. I like what I'm seeing from Virginia Tech. Remember, congratulations are in order. Oh, remember that. Congratulations are in order for Virginia Tech. They made the tournament, and they will take on Oregon State. I like them to win that game. Moving on to the number 3 seed, it is Missouri. So yes, I did respect the Missouri Tigers. Their great season. They beat Ohio State at the end. They are a 3 seed for me, and they will be taking on a 14 seed, Appalachian State. So kind of an interesting situation for Missouri, not used to being a top seed, facing an Appalachian State team, an upset-minded Appalachian State team, but you would expect Missouri to win that game. Moving on to the 7th seed, it is North Carolina. North Carolina, really interesting team. They certainly have elite talent, especially at the quarterback position with Drake May, but they really tailed off there towards the end of the season. They will be taking on Rutgers. I do not think that's a great matchup for North Carolina. Rutgers is a hard-nosed team. That is ACC versus Big Ten. and I'm expecting that to be a lower scoring game. Moving on to the 2 seed in this region, it is Georgia. So Georgia, the highest 2 seed, obviously just missed the college football playoff, an extremely elite team. You could argue they're the best team in this entire bracket. They will be taking on Ohio University. So Ohio, unfortunately, the 15 seed that won 10 games out of the MAC, they get to draw the Georgia Bulldogs, who won back-to-back national titles. Moving on to the final region, the final 1 seed, and it is Alabama. So Alabama, Nick Saban still there, at least in this simulation. Jalen Milroe, the ultra elite roster. They will be taking on Coastal Carolina. What an interesting matchup that is. Coastal Carolina with Grayson McCall. He is an elite quarterback. I don't know, that's a tough matchup for Alabama there. I'd be a little bit nervous if I was Bama. You get a team like Coastal Carolina with an elite quarterback like Grayson McCall. We will see. Moving on to the number 8v9 game, it is Duke. Congratulations are in order to Duke University for actually making this tournament. Even after the Riley Leonard injury, they were leaking oil. I mean, they could have been like a 2 or a 3 seed after the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, but they struggled towards the end. They end up still making the tournament in an 8v9 game against Kentucky. Kind of a boring matchup there, Duke, Kentucky. I mean, what can we say? There's not much to say about that one. Moving on to the 5v12 game, it is Utah. So Utah, they're a team that I do think, I thought they were a fraud this past year just because their offense was really bad without Cam Rising. I think they're primed to get upset against a 12 seed, and that 12 seed is going to be the Troy Trojans. Troy had a very nice season. They get in as a 12 seed, so a group of 5 team that didn't even need to be a 13 or a 14 seed. They were just in because they are a very good team. Moving on to the 4 seed, it is Kansas State. So I did value Kansas State pretty highly here. I gave them a 4 seed, although I will be honest, if I did remember to put Penn State in this tournament, they would probably be bumped down to a 5 seed. But, you know, they get to be a 4 seed. They have Will Howard in this simulation. They do have an explosive offense. We will see. They will be taking on Air Force. So we remember Air Force, they started 8-0. They really struggled towards the end. I mean, they were trending towards like a top 5 seed, but they end up as a 13 seed. They had a bad finish to the season. Moving on to the number 6 seed, it is Louisville. The Cardinals out of the ACC enjoyed a breakout season, and they get rewarded with a 6 seed, and they will be taking on Florida. So the Gators do make the tournament just barely. They were a team I debated sending to the NIT, but they're going to make it as an 11 seed. Graham Mertz, very efficient. They're playing in the SEC. We'll see if they can beat an ACC team in Louisville. Moving on to the number 3 seed, it is Ole Miss. So definitely you could have considered Ole Miss a 2 seed. I have them as my number 1 3 seed in this bracket. They will be taking on a 14 seed, and that 14 seed is Miami of Ohio. So yes, Miami, very good season, double-digit wins out of the MAC, but unfortunately they got a really tough draw against the best 3 seed. Moving on to the 7 seed, it is Maryland. So Maryland, they've got some decent upside on their offense with Tonga Vailoa. The receiver is kind of explosive out of the Big Ten. They are a 7 seed. They will be taking on James Madison. So James Madison, really good start to their year. They were the talk of the town, and then they struggled towards the end, but now they're a 10 seed in an interesting matchup with Maryland. The final 2 seed of the bracket, it is Florida State, the Seminoles, dealing with a quarterback injury, but I still rewarded them. They had an undefeated regular season with a 2 seed, and they will be battling UNLV, a really impressive 15 seed. My goodness, that game starts at 11 o'clock at night, and I would guess UNLV would be the favorites. Yeah, UNLV's a really good 15 seed, and Florida State is dealing with an injury, but let's actually zoom this out. Well, we don't want to zoom it out that far. Yeah, there we go. So here's the entire bracket. You can take a look at it. It's very nice, and I'm not going to do the simulations right now. I just wanted to do the reveal of the entire bracket. That is the seeding. Unfortunately, that's Wyoming. I don't know. It won't show it, but that is the entire college football 2020. I guess this would be 2023 technically because it's based off of rosters in 2023, but it is. We're just going to call it the 2024 March Madness bracket.